Live? All right. Friends, we are back for a little freestyling now, back in the California Republic after a 2-week epic trip. And when I mean epic, I mean beyond epic, trip of the Midwest. And just to kind of recount the stuff we did in the 2-week period we were away, we went and drove a perfect 1970 Ram Air 4 GTO. Then the very next day, we went and drove a perfect, like, I think it was 20,000 mile 1990 Lancia Delta Integrale 16 valve, just brought over from the UK. It's a left hook car. It was just brought over from the UK, just sorted by Walker's Garage. That was, oh my God, it was so much better than I envisioned. There are episodes of both coming up. And then we went to this incredible car party. People in Michigan, they have yards. Like, we don't have yards. We have to come to places like this with sand volleyball courts here in the California Republic. They have car parties. So we went to one of the most amazing parties I have ever been to in my life. I will tell you nothing more of it because there will be a full episode of that coming. And it's a special line of episodes which I'll talk about in show updates after we talk about this car. But continuing our epic trip, then we got on a plane. I missed my flight. I got on the next flight, went to Milwaukee to go to Road America to drive the 640 horsepower Cadillac CTS-V on Road America. We will come up with that in the show updates as well. And if that were not enough, I was planning on going home after that, then went to, oh, I almost forgot. While we were in Detroit, did a tour of everything in Detroit with a bright orange McLaren. And when I say everything in Detroit, everything from Zingerman's, if you know Detroit or Ann Arbor, you know Zingerman's, all the way to like Urban Farms, to literally Motown, Hitsville, USA, to Zora Arcus Duntal's house with a McLaren. I know it's somewhat kind of sacrilegious, but this is a reason why you follow me on Instagram, MotoManTV on Word, MotoManTV on Word, so you can see all that stuff, all those pictures of an orange McLaren in front of all those monuments throughout Detroit, including the Red Set, are all there. What else? Oh, and then there was this detour at the end of the trip, unexpected, wonderful detour to Chicago, and did everything from driving a 1994 12,000 mile Mazda RX-7 twin turbo. God, I remember that car was brand new, and I was excited about it in college, like, man, I gotta get me one of those. And now it's a sought-after classic. That kind of screws with your brain a little bit, but I digress. And then went to, it's very cool, like, we do Cars and Coffee out here. They do this thing called Rise and Drive there. Same concept, although theirs much better organized than ours, I gotta be honest with you. And they do it in Soldier Field. That's like doing a car setup, like a car show at Dodger Stadium. But they have the whole backdrop of Soldier Field, which kind of looks like, if you've ever seen the Berlin Rathaus, where it's got the old at the bottom and the new at the top. Soldier Field is very much like that. Then they got the backdrop of Chicago, and then on the other side they got a lake. Chicago's a good town. Anyway, and also rounding out Chicago, went to this amazing barbecue place on the south side baby. Anyway, let's get back to this car here. This is the 2015 Volkswagen Golf R. Now, if you saw our full episode on this car, you know that the car we featured in that episode, it looked just like this, although it had a hole roof here, but it was the same color, different wheels. That was a Euro market car, and the reason why we drove the Euro market car is because it had 3 pedals. This one does not. So the reason why I want to do a little freestyling with you guys here was to talk about some, maybe not some impressions, but living with the DSG in this car now with a couple of days as opposed to living with a car for a day with a stick. So overall, I still love this car. Overall, I think it is an awesome combination of power and utility. And personally, I think in this very cool blue, it really does stand out. That said, I really have to say I wouldn't buy this in a DSG. Not that the DSG is a bad transmission. You know me, I gotta have everything as a stick. Even living, if I were living in Chicago or living in New York City, like I did. I lived in London as well. Both cities, I had a stick in both cars. So even living in a city like Los Angeles, I would really have to have a stick. And the reason why is it changes the character of the car. Like, this is a plenty fast car. It's very sharp with a DSG in it. But overall, there's more. I don't want to give you like the standard bullshit line of there's more interaction with the manual transmission. Of course there's going to be more interaction with the manual transmission. It transforms the character of the engine. It makes the car, it's like it's one, I'm losing my train of thought on this, but it's like it's carved out of one piece of aluminum when you have the stick, where the DSG, you feel somewhat disconnected from the driving experience, which is really why you buy this car, because, you know, almost 300 horsepower, 200 horsepower, that's quite a bit of power in a little car like this. And the reality is the DSG, it doesn't so much slow down the car, or it doesn't get you to a point where you can't use all the power. You definitely can, because that transmission is beautifully matched to the engine. It's just, if you're buying this car as a performance car, I don't understand why you would want to have the transmission work for you. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. A couple of things I do want to say about this vehicle in particular. The one we had down in San Diego was much better equipped than this vehicle. That one had the sunroof, as I talked about. That one had navigation. This one does not have navigation, and obviously that one was a stick. Other than that, it's kind of the same package. I personally, I preferred the wheels on the other car a bit better. Those were the Euro market wheels, although these are pretty cool looking too. One thing I did notice about this one that the other one did not have, take a look back here, this sticker here, 40 years of golf. At the end of the day, it's pretty amazing that this nameplate has been around almost as long as the nameplate of a Porsche 911, a Chevrolet Corvette, or a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. I mean, that's pretty amazing company. I mean, a Miata hasn't even been around as long as this. That's only 25 years. But I digress. Anyway, so living with the car a couple of days, again, my feelings on the car still very much stay the same. I would own this car. I totally would own this car. Mine, I'd have to have a sunroof in mind. I'd have to have the stick in mind, which is coming, as you guys full well know. But overall, it still presents a unique challenge, because I know you and I have debated considerably through the comments of the Audi S3 film. You remember the week that we put this episode out? We deliberately held off the S3 episode so you can put them in the same week. And you and I had a very lively discussion between the two cars of which one would you buy, because effectively they are the same car. The platform is the same, the engine is the same, the all-wheel drive system is the same. What's interesting, and I think the reason why I personally would do this over the Audi is, yeah, there's the utility, but I'm going to put that aside because I don't buy cars because of practicality. I'm just broken like that. I would buy this one because this one, and you can kind of tell when you spend some time with it, this one has been tuned by none other than Hans Stuck. We were going to try to get him on the show when we had the program going there, but sadly we didn't have enough time to get him and talk to him about what he did. But I know he was very active in the tuning of this vehicle, where the Audi, it was, not that the Audi engineers are bad, but I love the bragging rights of saying the one and only Hans Stuck tuned my race car, or my car that I am dailying to Home Depot every day. So with that, I'm going to put this aside. Any questions so far, G-Man, on this? No questions, okay. So let's go for some show updates here. Couple of things. So yes, we've been away for 2 weeks, and it was an epic 2 weeks. There's no doubt about that. It has impacted us a little bit in the post department. We are now back. You can show them, G-Man. We are back at HQ here, MotoMan HQ, YouTube Space LA. So that means we're a little slow in getting some episodes out to you, and namely, and I know you guys are going to shoot me for this, that means the Cadillac CTS-V episode is a little bit slow through post. It will be coming to you, the full drive episode of that car will be coming to you on Saturday of this week. We're also going to be getting you a tech overview this weekend as well. So yes, I apologize to you guys for being a little slow in getting that out to you. But we are going to make it up to you by getting you both the full first drive episode, which I can tell you right now, the car was epic. and I'm using epic too much, I'm going to take epic out of it. The car was incredible, and Cadillac very smartly gave us that car on probably the best venue that you should be driving a car with that kind of horsepower. Road America, this entire week, I have had a hard time getting up in the morning, and I'm a distance runner, so I do get up early in the morning. I have a hard time getting up in the morning because I dream of that racetrack every morning. I got 2 days on that track, solid 3 hours behind the wheel, driving that. I mean, never get that kind of a time on a track when I go to these events, but because of the way I spent time at this event, I was able to get quite a bit of seat time, and wow. And you will see that in the full episode. We have a question.
What do you think about the VW's lineout? The current
lineup?
Yeah, lineup.
That's a very ambiguous question. Is there any something specific, like in terms of fuel economy or competitive nature? I'd love to know a little bit more of what you're looking for in this question. Any more there?
No.
Nothing. Weigh in a little bit more. Kind of give us some direction on where you want us to get. Like, are they competitive? Is the product set good? I'm not understanding really where you want me to go with this. So anyway, back to CTS-V. Okay, now we got the guy back.
No. Someone asked for a burnout.
In this car? Burnout. Oh, have you followed us on Instagram? Well, I would suggest you watch the CTS-V episode because something tells me your wish will be granted.
About the VW as a competitive nature.
As a competitive nature. So, it's funny. I do a lot of things. You guys all know Matt Farah. Matt Farah is a friend of mine. We're neighbors. And there's a line of his I love to steal. And it's the way we make money, all of us, me, Matt, a bunch of guys in this space, it's a lot of hoses into one bucket. And one of the areas that I make money is I do industry insight for like financial analysts, hedge funds, that kind of stuff. I kind of give them insight to the industry. And whenever I talk to these guys, they always want to talk about competitive sets. And I tell them in every case, there are two companies that should scare the shit out of you. And that is Hyundai and the Volkswagen Group. Hyundai, because they're like the old Ford in that they do everything. Hyundai doesn't just make cars. Hyundai makes cars, they make infotainment, they even make the steel they make the cars out of. They got their own steel factory. If that doesn't scare the shit out of you as another car company, I don't know what does. Then, Volkswagen's a whole different group. Volkswagen they've got every brand soup to nuts. So they've got, obviously, this brand, Volkswagen. They've got sub-brands in Europe like Seat and Skoda. They even have motorcycles now with Ducati, and they go all the way up to Lamborghini, Bentley, and Bugatti. So they've got everything covered under one corporate group. Now, how does that make them competitive is probably the question. Do we know the name, G-Man, of who this person is? We don't? Okay. How does that make that competitive? Well, number one, they have more economies of scale. So, for example, when they make a vehicle like this, we spent a lot of time in an episode. It was a 15-minute episode with Nick Uhas, who from Big Brother. He's also got his own science channel. And we spent a lot of time in that episode talking about how this car is built. Forget about that it's 300 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and it's a fun car to drive, but how is the platform built? So one of the things why I'd be scared about Volkswagen if I was one of the competitors is instead of taking one platform that works for maybe 2 or 3 cars, like a Volkswagen Golf or an Audi A3 S3, what they've done is they've come up with segments or bits that are reused over different segments. So for example, the front sub-assembly, where the gas tank comes up and joins the body. These are all common hard points. So Volkswagen, instead of making one platform, invest a lot of money into one platform that can be only used in 1 or 2 cars. What they've done is they've taken the hard points, made it like, they call it a toolkit in German, that's how it's translated, but it really is the best way to describe it. So they've made this toolkit which can work on a front-wheel drive version of this car, an all-wheel drive version of this car, a couple of Audis, But then get this, the same piece can work on the bigger Passat. It's going to be an updated Passat coming soon. We're going to be driving that in October. It can also work on SUVs, so some of the Audi SUVs, both the small and the midsize. The same bits work there. Or now, the TT that's coming out, or not coming up, it was just released. That version of the TT also works on this platform toolkit. And the logic is, if you're making these common hard points, investing into one common hard point, you have more money for research and development to put into like Ducati motorcycles, ridiculous engines in Bugattis, or that EXP Speed 6 that they showed a couple of months ago. It's going to be at Pebble Beach next week. Cars like that. Does that answer your question? We have another question.
So you think it's better managed than GM or Ford as a group?
I wouldn't say it's better management. I would say from an engineering perspective, and now keep in mind, my background, I am a creative person that has a nose for business, I would say. So I wouldn't call myself an engineer. My father was a rocket scientist. He literally put men on the moon, so I could talk somewhat intelligently to engineering, but I am not the be-all and end-all. My feeling, or my answer to you, my gut would tell you that by being smarter about the investment of hard points like this, this is where it costs a lot of money to make cars, is the engineering and trying to spread that cost over many cars. So they're being a little bit smarter on saying, you know what, the things that we can repeat, the things you don't see, we're going to make repeats for the cars that don't affect the driving experience or the quality of the vehicle. This way they isolate that cost, and then they can have more of a budget for things that you do see. Like, notice this car looks entirely different than the Audi S3. They're based on the same bits, but they drive completely differently because they hired a different guy to tune it in this case. Or in the case of the TT, it drives more like a sports car, where it's got more of a daily feel to it. So would I say it's better than General Motors? I don't say it's really better than General Motors. I think it's better equipped to deal with more disparate brands. Where Ford and General Motors, they've gone a different direction, and if you really look at it, they're very successful in that direction. So Volkswagen has taken the old school American way of building cars, is they try to be everything to all people. So you've got the Volkswagen, and then in Europe you've got Seat, Skoda for lower end cars, and then you've got things like Lamborghinis and Audis for higher end. So you're able to do more with kind of the same investment. Where General Motors and Ford, they said, you know what, we're done being all things to all people. We are going to make two brands. We're going to share some platforms, but the bits that you do see, we're going to differentiate significantly, which was a big departure. A great example of this is, look at the Buick LaCrosse and the Chevrolet Impala. They're exactly the same platform, but those cars have two totally different platforms, two totally different personalities, and they drive completely different, even though the bits are very much the same. Does that answer the question?
There is any niche that Volkswagen doesn't cover, like pickup, and
well, in other markets they do have pickup trucks, like not in the US.
Yeah, but it's well covered. And the other question that goes with it, it's that Volkswagen is known to be slow to catch up with new.
Volkswagen is slow to catch up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Volkswagen is slow to catch up with anybody. I would say Volkswagen, you know, there's a great saying in business. You could sit here and look at, there's a lot of things that come at you, and I don't care what, like this building here, you see this building over here, this is Konami, okay? That's Fox Sports, and over there is Activision, and here's Volkswagen, and I run a media business. But we all have the same problem. We have so much coming at us at any one time. The difference between a good business, a properly managed business, and a poorly run business is you look at all the different opportunities coming at you, and you say to yourself, you have to have the discipline to say to yourself, you know what, this is a great opportunity, let's run with it, like an all-wheel drive version of the Golf. Or, this is a great opportunity, a full-size pickup, but you know what, it's not for us, so we're not going to focus on it. We're going to let Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors duke that one out. So I would argue Volkswagen is not slow at all. I think they're just more disciplined in what markets they want to focus on. Hopefully that answers the question.
But the Hyundai is not driver's cars. Would you buy one of those cars?
Say that again?
But Hyundai.
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 Yeah.
It's not a driver's.
That's the Brazilian way of saying, you know, Hyundai. And for all of you that try to, I love these guys. So G-Man, you'll love this. Just as an aside, whenever we put a Hyundai episode out, I love when everybody tries to correct us on how to pronounce Hyundai. The guy who is the vice chairman of Hyundai, he told me how to pronounce Hyundai. If he runs the company and he says, say Hyundai, well, guess what? It's Hyundai. Done with that topic. What was the question?
They say that's not a driver's car. Would you buy one?
Would I buy one? No, I would never buy Hyundai. It's not my cup of tea, but we've talked about this. Did you guys see our Mazda CX-3 film? We talked about the Spectrum and the Mazda 3 film as well. I was a year and a half ago. We talked about a spectrum. So there's a spectrum of driving dynamics up here and value and low on the driving dynamics scale here, but then the inverse is true usually. You have value down here, or value up here, and driving dynamics down here. So I would look at a Mazda 3, comparably equipped to a Hyundai Elantra, is more expensive for a reason. Because Mazda has this incredibly complex, fully independent rear suspension. It's a multi-link unit. It's very sexy to look at, actually. For guys like me, it's somewhat strangely arousing. But that's a lot of money to build one of those things. But if I were to put a Hyundai in here, I'd show you, it does have an independent rear suspension, but it is the most basic blah rear suspension that's out there. It's like, it's pressed steel. The pieces are made of pressed steel, where the rear, not even in this one, it doesn't have as good of a rear suspension as the Mazda 3. The pieces on the Mazda are made of aluminum. The subframe is something like, it's artwork itself. That's why it's not as cheap. And then Hyundai, in that Elantra example we told you about, you can get heated rear seats, and that car is, I think, $23,000, fully equipped. That's everything, sunroof, everything. This car, this $37,000 car doesn't even have that kind of stuff that Hyundai has, but it doesn't drive nearly as good as the Mazda. And the Mazda's 29 grand or 26 grand, whatever it is, way more. So it goes back to, I feel like I'm giving life lessons now. It goes back to priorities in life. What's your priority? For me, I am a car guy. I am broken. I wouldn't want a practical car. I want the lightest, fastest car I can get with a manual transmission, even driving around Los Angeles, New York City, or London, all places I've lived. But most people, like if I were to go through the parking lot over there of YouTube Space, all the Google employees who are very, you know, they're not quite the creative types that we are, most of them drive Hyundais because they're good value. So no knock on Hyundai. They are great cars. And let me repeat what I said earlier. If I were Volkswagen or any other car company, especially Ford, I would be scared shitless of Hyundai because they are eating everybody's lunch right now, including Kia. Does that answer the question?
Someone made a statement that this car has a better lap time than the RS3.
RS3.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine and good. That's great. Yeah. Now, in reality, actually, this would be a good question to leave with you guys. How often would you take a car like this to the track? Like, if you buy a car like this, are you really going to take it to a track? You're going to spend $37,000 on a car that you would take to the track? That's always a good question, because people say they're going to buy a car and they want the fastest car, and they're going to go out and you're really going to beat the crap out of it on the track? I don't know. I don't think I would. I would have a separate car for that. Does that make sense?
Going back to Detroit, what were your thoughts about the McLaren?
About the McLaren? Oh my God, the McLaren is awesome. The McLaren. So, you guys are not going to believe this, but that was the first McLaren I have ever driven. I had never driven a McLaren before. And you know that I am a major Lotus freak. And I don't think I'll ever solve that. I think I discussed this with you guys before. I think the only way to solve it is for Porsche to introduce a GT3 RS with a manual transmission in the Targa. And then I think I would rid myself of Lotus forever. Anyway, I digress. But a little behind the scenes here. McLaren has kind of drained a lot of the Lotus engineering brain trust. So a lot of the people that used to work over at Hethel now work in Woking at McLaren. So imagine taking a Lotus and taking it like 100 times more in every direction. More power, more handling, more sharper driving dynamics, more on the edge. That's what I felt with this car. Now, in fairness, did I drive this car on a track? No, I drove it in one of the most inhospitable places you could drive it, which is the city of Detroit, where there's no infrastructure, there's no investment in infrastructure whatsoever, so the roads were terrible. And it was a learning experience for me, because here's a car that is beautifully engineered for a track. I wouldn't call it the most beautiful car, but it's beautifully engineered for a track, and it handles, it beats most cars it competes against on tracks. But driving it around town, you'd be shocked how supple it was, going over potholes. Like, if you look at some of those pictures that we put up on Instagram, there's one we're in the hood. Like, we are in the hood. There was practically no pavement on that road, and the car was fine, totally fine. I was more surprised by the dual personality of the car rather than just its overall, does it drive as you would think it would drive, which is a hyper sports car that you would expect to do great on a track. I will have to come back to you, because we are going to be featuring McLaren more on the show, so we'll do some more with that and take it either like down to, you know, our usual top secret Moto Canyon, or hopefully we'll get some track time with it. Any other questions on the McLaren?
No. Someone asked if you find it too docile.
Too docile? The McLaren? Oh no. McLaren. See, the McLaren, it's kind of like the old CTS-V. I'm going to bring this full circle for you. The new CTS-V is way beyond what the old one was. But the old one, what's interesting about that car, or what was interesting about that car, it had two distinct personalities. You could drive it around all day long and you would never know what that car could do. But then the minute you stick your foot into that thing, Santa Maria Madre de Dios, does that thing, oh my God, it was like a scalded cat the way the thing would go. The McLaren's the same way. It is not docile at all. It can be docile. I had learned driving it in Detroit that it was a great tool for driving around. Like, we had the air conditioning on all day. We were very comfortable. It was two of us in the car. We were very comfortable in the car. It was like in a Lotus, like two people sitting in the car, you're right on top of each other. This person, you really gotta like the person you're with. Where the McLaren, you actually have a little bit of space, even with the climb over to get out of the car. Hopefully that makes sense. So, the short answer, it is not docile whatsoever. It can be whatever you want to. Any other questions?
Then one day we go to Dave's desk at GM.
Dave's desk? Actually, that's a really, who said that?
Poop82.
That's a great idea. We're gonna go to Dave's desk. I don't know if he's gonna go for it, but we're gonna make him do it anyway. We're gonna go to, I love that idea, but I don't know if he has a desk, to be honest with you. I'm sure he's got a desk or an office at the tech center. Now, one of the pictures.
His name is Edward.
Edward. Great question, Edward. I love that. I'm gonna run it past. I'm gonna email Dave as soon as I get back into the studio. So go back to our Instagram, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word. You should follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. But if you look at the McLaren, the pictures of the McLaren, we were seriously gangster that day. We drove the McLaren around the tech center at General Motors. We just blew past the gate. And granted, the guy didn't come out to stop us at all. We just acted as if, what's the old saying in the world? Don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. So we're rolling in there, trying to go under the cover of darkness in a bright orange McLaren onto the tech center. 3 seconds, security is following us at that point. And we're driving around. The whole point was to go and just kind of give a tour of the place and then get a picture. So now if you guys know the tech center, it's this stunning Aero Saarinen designed like mid-60s, like mid-century modern facility. So we put the car in front of the water tower and took a picture. You got to see the picture on Instagram. Go check it out right now. Anyway, So I know that Dave has an office there, but he's also got an office up at the Milford Proving Grounds. So I think what we should do is we should go to his office at the Milford Proving Grounds and then go and like do crazy shit on the track with Dave. Because he's, you know, I found something out about Dave. In General Motors, when you're an engineer, they rate your driving for track driving, obviously for testing. So there's 1 to 6 plus. And basically, it depends on your skills. Dave is a 5, which means the guy can drive competitively, he can do wheel to wheel, he's one of the best they have. But then there's a 6, which is the absolute best, they're the instructors. And the 6 plus, get this, the 6 plus means you're the only people within General Motors that can drive a car, a GM product, on the Nürburgring. Very cool. We're going to Dave's office. I love that idea. Dave's not going to like it, though. Edward, you're the man. Any other questions, G-Man? Okay, so let's go back to some show updates. So, recap, my apologies. We are a little slow in post this week. We were away for 2 weeks, not an excuse. My bad. We will be back to you on Saturday with the Cadillac CTS-V full episode from Road America. This is definitely an episode you do not want to miss. And then we will also be giving you the Dave Leone deep tech dive of that car as well this weekend. So definitely come in for both of those. And then I have got some exciting news to share with you guys. So here's a German car, right? Come with me, let's walk. This is very exciting, so I have to pace as I tell this to the audience. So we've featured Volkswagen on the show for many years, right? We've featured a lot of Mercedes-Benz on the show for many years. But you guys have commented multiple times and asked the question of, why have you not featured BMW on the show? Because you have astutely noticed there is no BMW MotoManTV episodes. Well, I am very happy to announce that that is changing. That is going to change in about 3 weeks, and we're doing it big. We are going to be driving der Neue 7, and we're not just driving the new 7 Series, we're taking the new 7 Series to Monticello Motor Club. So to say I'm excited would be an understatement of the century, but I think this is a great way to bring BMW on the show for the first time. We do it with a totally new generation of 7 Series, and I think it would be a great discussion for you and I to go back and forth, because we've had a lot of discussions about Mercedes-Benz S63, both sedan and coupe, and we've had the discussion about the Audi S8, and we've also had the discussion about the Mercedes-Benz S65 coupe, which I still, oh my god, I love that car. But now we're actually going to open up the discussion after driving the BMW 7 Series. That is going to come at the end of this month. And with that, I believe that's all the updates we're going to share for now. Any other questions before we sign off, Mr. G-Man? I guess not. Okay, friends, with that, I'm going to say bis später from back in the California Republic. It was an incredible trip, if I haven't told you already. The 2 weeks in the Midwest, and thank you to everyone who hosted us there in Detroit, Milwaukee, Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, Appleton, Wisconsin, and of course, Chicago. So thank you very much for joining us for, it was much longer freestyling than I thought it would be. Hopefully you guys have learned something from this. Let us know, do you want to see more of these freestyles? Because these are much easier for us to do. And I personally have a lot of fun doing this with you guys because it's more interactive, and you and I can talk more directly to each other as opposed to just through comments on YouTube or via Twitter or Facebook. And with that, I say bis später from the California Republic. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot one huge update. Oh my god! What the hell is wrong with me? G-Man, I can't believe you didn't remind me. Here is an incredibly big update. So next week, yeah, I hear there's something going on about classic cars next week. Maybe you've heard something about it. We are going to be celebrating in style next week with a classic car episode every single day of next week. So Monday through Sunday of next week, we are going to be featuring a classic car episode every single day. We start out with something very cute from these people here that was quite surprising, and we go through a couple of other cars that you haven't seen on the show, and then we have 3 of the same car on 3 separate days, but they're different vintages, and then we culminate the week with the car party of car parties. We did this amazing discussion walk around with our good friend Bob Boniface. I know you guys love this guy. Wait till you see what we did with him at his house. We went to his backyard. Talk about going to Dave's office. We went to Bob Boniface's house. If that is not cool, I don't know what is. So join us for our Classic Car Week next week, all week, every day, a new episode.
Give you a hint about the episodes, or the first episode.
Well, first I already gave you a hint. It's from these manufacturers.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another hint.
The year?
What's that?
The year?
1956. 1950. Now if you have been following us on Instagram, so here's another reason why you guys need to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, because I Instagram and Twitter like a 13-year-old girl. So every one of the cars you're going to see next week has already been on Instagram and Twitter over the past many months. This is not something that we just shot and put together. This is something we've been planning for a long time to curate a wonderful week of classic cars for all of those that are interested in classic cars. Because I love these. It's fun driving new cars. It's great. This one is magically going to turn into something with a hardtop folding roof in a couple of hours. But driving the old cars, it's just so much cooler, being completely honest with you. So join us all next week. We had a lot of fun shooting all this stuff. Any other questions, Mr. G-Man? What is this, like a half an hour, this thing? How long have I been doing this? I try to make these things like 5 minutes. Every time I start, 5 minutes, and they turn into 15 minutes. With that, I have to get back to finishing your Cadillac CTS-V episode. Don't you want to see that? So, bis später.